Good day, students. My name is Mr. Ilori, and I'll be taking you history. Today, we would be considering the topic meaning of commodities, and subsequently, we'll move into commodities traded in trans-Saharan trade. As you very much know, that the trans-Saharan trade was an ancient form of trade initially started in the northern region of Africa. And we understand that trade by barter was the initial means of exchange, especially in relation to trading with West Africa. Back to the main topic, which is meaning of commodities. Commodities are goods which can be bought or sold. These goods that we buy or sell in the market are referred to as commodities. Examples of commodities vary from household items to basically the major demands of humans in relation to food, clothing, and shelter. And with that, we can give examples to include foods like beans, yam, rice, then personal items like our bags, to toiletries, then to the clothes that we wear, talking about our shelter, then salt used for food, and also shoes and books, just to name a few. Up next is the commodities traded in trans-Saharan trade. Now, commodities that were sold and bought in trans-Saharan trade came from North and West African states. As you know, the African countries consist of North, South, West, as well as East. But when we're talking about the trans-Saharan trade, we talk about just the two regions of North Africa and West African states. And initially, the major items of exchange were gold and salt. These were the major goods that were brought and sold in the trans-Saharan trade. However, as the trade grew, other goods were traded along the Sahara Desert from North and West African traders. As we know, traders engage in the buying and selling of commodities. Commodities from North Africa. The first commodity of trade from North Africa during the Trans-Sahara trade was salt. Salt was found majorly in regions like Idjil, Taudeni, Tautek, and Tagaza. I come again. Salt was found majorly in Idjil, Taudeni, Tautek, and Tagaza of North Africa. The Berber traders controlled the salt mines in the Sahara, notably Tagaza, Taudeni, and Tautek. And who are the Berbers? We talk about the Berbers being an ethnic group scattered around the Sahara. And as the knowledge of the Sahara was very, very detailed, they were able to control the salt mines of Tagaza, Taudeni, and Tautek. That leaves Idjil out of the equation, meaning that they were not in control of Idjil, but Tagaza, Taudeni, and Tautek. As the trans-Saharan trade grew, more commodities were added, as it is with all forms of trade. Commodities that people from North Africa had, which they brought to West Africa for trading, were salt, horses, books, beads, copper, cowrie, shells, and many more. We can also include the likes of dried fruits, gum, iron tools, dried fruits, brassware, firearms, and armor. And you might be wondering why the firearms and armor. It's very important for us to understand that at that point in time there was need for security of some sort, so firearms came in handy for that, as well as armor to protect yourself from being hit by your enemy. Now we move on to commodities from West Africa. The first commodity of trade that West African traders sold to North African traders during the Trans-Saharan trade was gold. And you might wonder why gold. But I take you back to history in relation to the country known as present-day Ghana was formerly known as the Gold Coast, and that was for the reason that it had an abundance of gold. So West Africa, especially Ghana, had large quantities of gold. This is the reason why Ghana was referred to as the Gold Coast. Western Europe and North Africa use gold for coinage, and by coinage I mean money, but they lack gold deposits. The perspective there is that Their lack led to the need to go in search for gold, and Ghana, formerly Gold Coast, provided a lot in that regard. They therefore imported gold mainly from Western Sudan, that's a region in West Africa. It was estimated that most of the gold found in Europe was imported across the Sahara. The second commodity exported from West Africa was human commodity, and by that we mean slaves. Trade in slave was gradually introduced into trans-Sahara trade. The trade grew following the establishment of Islamic Kingdom in North Africa. The establishment of Islamic Kingdom in North Africa by the Arabs prevented the Muslims from enslaving fellow Muslims in the north. So there was a protection of some sort for the Muslim communities. So humans were not made commodities as regards to slavery. This is because Islam forbids the enslavement of fellow Muslims, and I doubt if there's any religion in the world that endorses slavery. Hence, the Arabs moved southward off the Sahara and waged war to spread Islam and obtain slaves. When Muslims waged war, then we called it the Holy Jihad. The Holy Jihad. So they saw others who were not of the same faith as infidels. So they captured them as slaves. The coming of Muslim Arabs to the Sahara led to the increase of slave trade in the Sahara. Also, introduction of slave in human beings as commodity for sale made the trade to grow rapidly. You might be shocked at how that was possible, but there was a demand, a very high demand for slaves, and obviously they were used for different purposes, especially to help their masters in one or two tasks and duties, varying from the field to the household items. Now, commodities that were exported from West Africa include gold, slaves, corn, honey, ivory. And ivory is a hard yellowish white substance composing of the main part of the tusk of some animals, majorly elephants. It was used to make decorative objects in the olden days. And we also have leopard skins. Leopard skins could be used for making fine leather footwears, or even our belts, or even some forms of clothing. And also we had the popular kola nut that still is very common today. And with that, I take you to the assignment that I would like each and every one of you to partake in, as this will also foster our knowledge and help our understanding of history. Number 1, mention 2 major commodities of trans-Sahara trade. Number 1, mention 2 major commodities of trans-Saharan trade. Number 2, identify 3 commodities from North Africa that were sold in trans-Saharan trade. Identify 3 commodities from North Africa that were sold in trans-Saharan trade. And finally, number 3, list 3 commodities from West Africa that were traded in trans-Saharan trade. List 3 commodities from West Africa that were traded in the trans-Saharan trade. And with that, we've come to the end of the lecture for today. We considered meaning of commodities, and we went further to commodities traded in trans-Saharan trade. Commodities are goods that can be sold and bought, and we talked about commodities traded in trans-Saharan trade, majorly commodities from North Africa as well as those from the West African sub-regions. And I hope that we've been able to understand, and this would enhance our ability to go ahead and do the assignments. Until we meet next time, I remain your history teacher, Mr. Ilori. Thank you and enjoy your weekend.